Hello, thank you for stopping by the channel. My name is Dell, your deck technician, and today we'll be going over the Shrine Commander, Go-Shintai of Life's Origin. Now before we get into the video, I'd like to say please hit that like button and subscribe, and make sure you comment down below so we can get ourselves on the YouTube algorithm. And with that, let's go over this deck tech. Go-Shintai of Life's Origin is a 3/4 legendary enchantment creature shrine typing for 3 and a green. It has Wooburg, tap, return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whenever Go-Shintai of Life's Origin or another non-token shrine enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 colorless shrine enchantment creature token. Now there's a lot to take here with this commander. Firstly, it is a shrine type creature, meaning all the things with changelings could now be shrines as well, which opens up a whole wide of things. Additionally, whenever a shrine enters the battlefield, we'll create a token that is a shrine enchantment creature as well. And lastly, what we're going to focus on is the fact that it can Wooburg and get any enchantment from the graveyard back to the battlefield. So we don't have to focus on just shrines. This is also enchantment matters. This guy is so good. As a Shrines Matter deck, or Shrine Tribal I guess you could call it, we will be focusing obviously on the shrines. There are 17 in this game in total, and I will be using 15 of them instead. Of the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty sets, there is the Go-Shintai of Ancient Wars, Boundless Vigor, Hidden Cruelty, Lost Wisdom, and Shared Purpose. Of all of these, we'll be taking out the Go-Shintai of Lost Wisdom, solely because if I am a firm believer that if you're going to mill, you mill to win. If you're just milling to mill, just for the sake of it, all you're doing is putting cards in their graveyards, which is just another resource for them. Or we could mill ourselves so we can get enchantments from the graveyard onto the battlefield, but that's just more aggro for you to get Bajuka Ball and lose your entire graveyard. We're already going to have that much hate already. 2021 gave us 6 Sanctum Shrines that we're going to be able to use in this deck. There is Sanctum of Calm Waters, Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest, Sanctum of Shattered Heights, Sanctum of Stone Fangs, Sanctum of Tranquil Light, and probably the most important of all these, Sanctum of All. We'll be using all of these shrines except for Sanctum of Tranquil Light. Just, if there are better ways to tap creatures, I know it's a shrine, but I'd rather fill that slot with something else. Last but definitely not least, we have the original shrines that came out when Kamigawa first came out, and these are the Hongden sets. There is Hongden of Cleansing Fire, Hongden of Infinite Rage, Hongden of Life's Web, Hongden of Night's Reach, and Hongden of Sea Winds. With all 5 of these shrines, we'll be able to keep a bunch of cards in our hands, creatures on the battlefields, and a bunch of life points to make sure that we don't die, as well as making sure our opponents keep on dying and make sure that everyone else has no cards in their hands to combat us. Now, with our 3 different types of shrines that we have from, there's clearly going to be some pros and cons to using each different types. Now, the Hongden and the Sanctum shrines are arguably stronger than their newer versions of the Go-Shintai shrines, but their downfall is they won't trigger until your upkeep and your first main phase, respectively. Now, the Go-Shintai shrines, however, they trigger during your end step, meaning you can use their abilities the exact same turn you summon them, as long as you have the 1 mana to pay them. And even with all their pros and cons, they're all very awesome to have in your deck. The more shrines, the better. Now, as in a deck that cares about shrines and enchantments, it's obvious we're going to have a bunch of Enchantment Matters synergies, which is probably one of the strongest synergies in the game already. Just for some draw power alone, we could use Enchantress's Presence, Eidolon of Blossoms, Satyr Enchanter, Mesa Enchantress, Verduran Enchantress, and lastly Sithis Harvest Hand, which will give us both drawing and some additional healing as well. The Jukai Naturalist will reduce the cost of all enchantments, as well as the Herald of the Pantheon, which also will reduce the cost of our enchantments. However, whenever we cast an enchantment, it will also give us 1 life. In the spectrum of getting tutors, we have the Enlightened Tutor, one of the original cards. It's expensive, but very good to have. We have the Idyllic Tutor, which can also grab enchantments, as well as the Moon Blessed Cleric. Now, I don't want to forget Sisei Weatherlight Captain. She gets a +1/+1 for each legendary permanent you control, and she gains the ability to pay Wooburg, search for a legendary permanent, and put it onto your battlefield where that legendary permanent is less than her actual power. We can easily get 3-4 additional to her attack power, making her a 5 or a 6, and grab pretty much any shrine we want, as they're all legendary, and put it right onto the battlefield. She's gonna be a very powerful addition, and if anybody's open, we can swing in for a husky creature as well. Token generation is another way that we're gonna just overrun the board and make sure our board presence is terrifying. With Ajani's Chosen and Archons of Sun's Grace, whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield, they'll give us a token that we can use to fight. Sigil of the Empty Hand does the same thing, but only when we cast an enchantment, so we won't get anything from our shrine tokens that enter the battlefield with this one. But still, that's a 4/4 flying angel that we get for casting each enchantment. The Archon of Sun's Grace, Ajani's Chosen, and Sigil of the Empty Throne, we are generating a bunch of tokens. That's not including the Go-Shintai of Shared Purpose and the Honden of Life's Web to generate tokens at the beginning of our upkeep and during our end steps every turn. Our board is going to be constantly flooded with tokens of spirits, cats, angels, and even shrine token creatures. Now, with all tribal decks, the first thing that's going to come to my mind is turning those creatures into additional value. With the Xenograph, the Arcane Adaptation, and the Maskwood Nexus, we can make all of these creatures shrine creatures. Now that shrines are now a creature type, we can just turn them all into shrines, and with that, every turn, we're just going to do so much damage with our damage-dealing shrines. We have Grim Guardian that states whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield, deal 1 damage to each opponent. With all of our shrine tokens coming in as shrines and enchantments, that's 1 damage every single time. And not to mention, we also will bring in Perforals God of the Forge that does 2 damage to each opponent for each creature that enters the battlefield. We have Weaver of Harmony that gives all enchantment creatures +1/+1 and pay a green, tap it to copy target activated or triggered ability from an enchantment we control, as well as Lithiform Engine that does the exact same thing but for any trigger. Not to mention we could copy cards or even spells or sorceries. Between the both of these, we'll have our shrines triggering a whole bunch of times each turn. Destiny Spinner is going to make sure that none of our creature or enchantment spells will be able to be countered, and if we got a free turn, we could just pay 4 mana and make a land, become an XX elemental creature with trample and haste, where X is the number of enchantments we control, which will have a ton of enchantments on the board, allowing us to just maybe finish somebody off real quickly. Sanctum Weaver, it has the ability to tap, give us X mana of 1 color, where X is the number of enchantments we control. This one is going to be able to play our Go-Shintais each turn, right during our end step, tapper, give us X mana. If we got 4 shrines, it's 4 mana, we can pay for each one of our creatures' shrines abilities and trigger them each time. And if we have anything left over, we can pay for our Lithiform Engines or our Weaver of Harmony as well. Now, because this deck focuses primarily on non-combat wins, we don't really have to worry about attacking each other, but we would like to still be safe from other attacking creatures. We don't have a lot of powerful creatures in this deck to block, but we have plenty. So that's where Sphere of Safety, Propaganda, and Ghostly Prison all come in, making people pay 2 for each creature they want to attack us, especially since we don't have a lot of flyers to help us block against flying creatures. This will definitely help us keep us safe from the airs and any swarmy creatures like Krinko or anything of the sort like that. Lastly, we need to discuss how we're going to keep all of our enchantments safe, and with that we'll bring in the Sterling Grove and a Greater Aromancy. With just one of these on the field, all of our enchantments will have Shroud. If we have both in the field, all of our enchantments now have Shroud, and we are safe from anything being targeted. The only way they didn't get rid of it would then be a mass wipe. And once the board wipes come through, you can use something like a Boros Charm or Heroic Intervention to give all of your permanents indestructibility for that instant. An honorable mention that I was thinking about bringing was both a High Market as a land and the Enchanted Evening, the enchantment that says all creatures are enchantments as well as their other types. So that means once you have something like a Ajani's Chosen or Archon Sun's Grace, once they summon a enchantment, then a creature comes in battlefield, that is also an enchantment. That now triggers an infinite combo. Particularly with Archons of Sun's Grace, you'll get infinite 2/2 Pegasus. Now, this won't win you the game, actually it'll end you in the draw, which is not what you want. With the High Market, you can then respond and sacrifice your Archon of Sun's Grace, ending the infinite loop whenever you feel comfortable with enough Pegasus that you have. Or, the better of the options would be with Grim Guardian or Perforals God of the Forge to do infinite damage to everyone on the board and give you a win. That was a bit cheeky and a bit more convoluted combos, but it is possible. Now, with all these synergistic combos of card draw, tutoring, and making everything a shrine, we've got to figure out how we're going to get this win. Now, the easiest way and most obvious way will be our shrines. The Go-Shintai of Ancient Wars, the Honden of Infinite Rage, Sanctum of Stonefangs, and the Sanctum of Shattered Heights are all cards that are going to allow us to deal damage directly to players' faces, sometimes multiple times in a turn. If you pair all those up with the Sanctum of Awe and make those trigger twice, then that's going to give us a win even more so. Now, of these, Sanctum of Stone Fangs is probably going to get you the fastest win, seeing as it does damage to all opponents equal to the number of shrines you control, and you gain life equal to each one of those. You're going to have such a high total and do so much damage to everyone. The other way we could win this game, as I mentioned earlier, would be with the Grim Guardian and a Perforose God of the Forge. With all the shrine tokens we'll be entering and all the other tokens we'll be entering in the field altogether, those ways would just generate so much just natural damage to everybody without even having to attack anyone. Now, the other way we can win this is by actually making the tags. Now, mind you, this is not the deck's strongest point, but with the previous mention and Johnny's Chosen, Archon of Sun's Grace, and the Sigil of Empty Throne, we can generate a bunch of tokens. But let's not forget our shrines. With Honden's Life's Web and Go-Shintai of Shared Purpose, we can generate a bunch of tokens every single turn because we'll have a bunch of shrines. So with those shrines, we can then swarm the board. Not to mention Go-Shintai of Boundless Vigor to make it stronger because it has Trample or any creature we decide we want to swing in with as well. There you have it, and that's our deck tech on the Go-Shintai of Life's Origin. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck, found it useful, and hopefully go out there and get some dubs with it. If there are any choices that you would change or any ideas that you want to make, put those in the comment section down below, as not only does it start a conversation, it also helps the channel grow as it helps the algorithm. Additionally, I will put our deck tech list in both the description and as the top comment of this video, and go check out and see how I put the whole deck together to make sure we get the most optimum efficiency. You can go with expensive lands or with the basic lands. I'm going with expensive lands just because I like them and they're my favorites. Now, with the next video, we'll be going over the Hinata Dawn Crowned. It's a Jeskai commander that's all flying, trample, and all about making our spells that target creatures cheaper while making everyone else's more expensive. Very, very fun deck, and I can't wait to make it. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. I'm going to get up out of here. Have a good night. Goodbye.